All right, hello everybody. We're now over here on YouTube. I think we are good to go. I think we're about 10 seconds in. It's probably a little bit of a delay. Anyway, I'm going to be reusing this dog thing for anybody else who caught us on Facebook. For anybody who doesn't know, my dad and I are both pilots, so kind of the aviation thing is around. I talk about it a lot, and part of what I do is I incorporate the discipline, the checklist, and some of the things, the aspects of flying and aviation into my trading. So that's kind of why I talk about it and why I lead with it. But thought this dog was pretty cute. Maybe catch your attention. Maybe we'll be using it for a thumbnail, something like that. The other thing that was kind of fun, I'll slide this over. This was over the summer. My dad and I were flying. We typically fly the airplane from Arizona to Washington when we were living there for the summer. And when we first arrive, we always do a flyby, and so that's what this is. So I don't know if audio comes by. There's not much to hear, but that's us. My mom and my sister are on the ground filming us. And you can see it's a nice, beautiful, sunny day out there up in kind of the Seattle area. So that's how we welcome everybody and say that we've made it from our basically our 2-day journey from Phoenix to Washington. All right, so let's kind of throw this back up here, and then just a little bit because I was getting a lot of questions before and I kind of forget to mention this. But if you guys kind of like what you see here when I'm teaching all of this, you can go to simplertrading.com courses, and right now we are offering a special. You can see that there is a countdown clock here. We got 1 day and 14 hours and 57 minutes left on this one for my Moxie stock method class and indicator. And what we're actually doing with this is we're going to add 2 free live trading sessions. So they already come with 3 recorded live trading sessions. We're going to be adding 2 more, probably about 3 hours each, coming up in the next few weeks. So that when you guys sign up for this, we'll be doing that again. It'll be current, updated. You'll get to come into class and talk with me and ask me questions, and we'll make sure that you get to know everything that you need to. The other thing, if you want, you can come over here to simplertrading.com/Moxie, and this is where my mastery program is where we give out push alerts. And that way, if you want to, trade like I trade, follow me along. That's how we do it. And we've got a pretty good class there. We have a lot of people who are very happy. It's been a good week, to say the least. I think everybody's kind of seeing that. It does make it easy when the market's doing well, and I will say we're having a very good time. So let me kind of move that around, and then let me pull this down so I can get the captions. All right, live chat. Good. Got everything going. So yeah, let me know as we're doing this if anybody has any particular questions, if there are any tickers that you all have been looking at, or any problems that you've been having. I want to make sure that we can take this opportunity and give you some actionable things to work with. And if there's anything that we can help address, maybe help with any undoing some bad habits, you just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking overall at the market. And I think probably for right now, what I wanted to show was how we handled this last dip. Now, everybody knows out there we've been talking about coronavirus, and that was kind of a thing. But for a long time, we were looking at this saying, "Boy, how long is this thing gonna go?" The market has been ripping along its third ATR on the daily chart for weeks, a couple months. We're like, man, how long is this going to go? At some point, we're going to need to pull back. What's going to happen? And sure enough, the news about the coronavirus came out. We feel terrible about the people over there and anybody who's been suffering from it. But a lot of times, the market just looks for excuses and for reason and for news to do something as far as this goes. And that's what that was. And what we saw is notice that we got the Moxie price trigger right there. And that was when price started to cross underneath the hourly 50. That all stemmed from price getting a little overbought right here. You can see the price actually jumped outside of the daily third ATR. And then you can see here that price got off the daily 8 EMA. So off the 8, back to the 8. It just became unsupported, and then it turned into something more. What we were looking for is we were trying to actually figure out, okay, what's going on here? Typically for me, when the Moxie indicator gets underneath 0 and price is underneath the hourly 50, I kind of just go hands off. I raise cash, I reduce my risk, and I just say, you know what, the market is not in a good position. I don't really like to go short too much, and so I just say, I'm out until something changes, and we'll have to see what happens. Now, what happened surprisingly. And this thing was, news, whatever. But notice how price went down, the indicator went down, and then we just reversed. That is not something I typically see, especially on the hourly chart. Usually we at least get a little bit of movement up before things turn around. This was definitely a very different situation. And with our U.S. government, the Fed adding to its balance sheets, qualitative easing, and then also the Chinese government adding to their markets with qualitative easing. They just put in several billion dollars, and this thing just turned right around and fixed that problem real quick. Big picture, a lot of this was also bouncing right off of the daily 50. So, from a technical standpoint, this all worked out very nicely. Now, for me, what I wanted to look at, let me zoom over here on the 15 as well, is we kind of got, I think a lot of us got surprised, but right there on the 15-minute, and it was going into a Friday, going into a weekend. I definitely didn't want to be long. I didn't want to be taking a whole lot of stuff, but that was Friday right there. Friday actually got on top of the 15-minute 50, and it held, you know. But as I said, didn't really want to take that risk on Friday, especially with the Moxie indicator like this. And so then price jumped up and it continued to run. And I said, that's fine. I want to make sure that this thing is good, that it's strong, that it's going to work out. You can see I wasn't sure what we were going to do with the previous highs. Was it going to get knocked down at it? As it turns out, it made new highs, but those new highs were starting to get stretched as it came outside of the third ATR on the hourly chart. And I said, totally fine too. Let's keep waiting. We're going to find a better entry in here. And so what we did, I knew that this was going to pull back at some point. I wasn't quite sure how far. And if you look here on the daily chart, because that's really kind of where it was, you can also see that price got too far off the daily 8. So I was looking at all that outside of the third ATR on the hourly chart. And I said, let's just wait. And what happened was we came back into the 8 EMA right there, dipped a little bit here on the hourly, but then mostly what happened was, you can see here I got this arrow that I posted. This price got back on top of the 15-minute 50. That was the key for me. And this is everything that I posted in the Moxie Mastery. So people who follow me, and we have the classroom that I chat with everybody, this is what I said. Hey, this thing is working. It's doing great. And this is the sign of the confirmation that price is going to go back up, and that's now safe to go back in, for now. So let's see. All right, Ethan, you're asking if you tried to front run the hourly Moxie crossing zero on Etsy. Thoughts? Let's take a look at Etsy. All right, so the Moxie indicator is a momentum-based indicator. So while it works very well most of the time, sometimes we just have to understand that it could lag a little bit. Now, that lagging, what it means is that in this case, the price is working out. There's a combination of momentum, the Moxie indicator, and then also kind of technical, which would be the moving averages. And what we can see from here is this one's had some pretty good momentum. It's carrying it from, say, a higher time frame. It's also been bouncing off of these moving averages, say the daily 21 doing pretty well. And you can see it also flattened here very well, and it also came into an uptrending hourly 200. So all of this told us that we had some pretty good support. The only thing that was telling us that maybe you need to be a little bit careful was the delay here on the hourly time frame. For now, that's not a problem, because what you can see is as price went sideways right here, there's your positive divergence. Then you continue to go sideways, more positive divergence. And then you can see price finally gets over the 15-minute 50 and then starts to engage with it. So all of that worked out pretty well. And then also price got back over the hourly 50. The only thing I'll say here is that we need to continue to watch it and make sure that this doesn't start to then roll over at some point. Because what that's going to tell us is that, let me back up a little. What this is telling us is that on this time frame, the Moxie indicator is telling us that energy is still negative. It's still in negative space. Now, it can push for some time because price is in positive space by the fact that it's over the hourly 50. At some point, this might catch up with it. And that's what I see a lot of times when price leads the indicator, that's like the tail wagging the dog. It's a little bit backwards because price is pulling momentum with it as opposed to momentum pushing price. So if that analogy kind of works for you, take a look at, I think it was BYND. Look at this. You see how on the hourly time frame, how price did got over the hourly 50, and it is over the hourly 50. But notice how the Moxie indicator, even though it's green, meaning it's been going up, is still in negative space. This is something that I'm concerned about. This is something I'll be looking at. This is typically what I call an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 when the indicator is below zero. And what that means is that This is not a situation that should exist. In fact, if the indicator continues to be negative, it's telling us that it's going to pull price down with it, or price is going to be unsupported. So if we go back to Etsy, we need to be aware of that, and we have to see if that continues and just how far lagging this is, because price can keep going up, and if the indicator doesn't cross until here, well, that means it didn't really get support, and then it can come back over at some point. So be a little bit cautious. Also look that, let me open this on a higher time frame chart because there are some things to see. We do have resistance here of the daily 200, and then we also do kind of have this resistance right here, right about there, from that price level. So the Moxie indicator might be telling us that it's kind of feeling that resistance up overhead. All right, let's see. Does the daily Moxie indicator above 0 and moving up not help decide how to use the hourly? Sure it does, but the daily Moxie indicator is slower than the hourly, and so depending on the precision that you need and the context of your trade, like for example, if your trade, let's say if you took your trade right around here and it's a 2-week option, well, this is not going to be precise enough for you. This is just telling us the general momentum is good to go, but we need to kind of also factor in some of the lower time frames to make sure that we don't get caught up in something, because this can say, for example, notice how on Etsy the Moxie indicator is above 0, right? And we're still over the 50. But now tell me this, if we went over to CGC, you see the problem here? What if you had stayed in? Because if you're saying, well, hey, the Moxie indicator is still above 0, well, that's not going to do anything good for your position. And this is why we need to blend the daily and hourly time frame, because the hourly told us to get out there. And if you want to go short, it told us to go short right there because the indicator was below 0. And price ran into a downtrending hourly 50. So this is where you need to blend them and make sure that we kind of take account for what's going on. Now, what I do like about this, now that this situation with CGC has happened and is occurring, this is starting to set up for something I really, really do like. Now, Ethan, what is this? When price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0, what is this? And we'll see if we got a little bit of delay. Let me read some of the other people. Okay, I'll go over to, Imran, I'll go to Skyworks next, and we'll take a look at that. Beyond, I think that's what we were talking about. That's right. So Ethan said that this is a trampoline move. That's exactly right. So I'm really, really I'm excited about this. I like this situation. It might take a while to actually come to fruition because we got to let the hourly chart actually happen and set up. But that's what I like. I'm looking at this saying this is pretty good. Just like, I think it was Beyond Meat, just like how on the hourly chart here, this might be an inverse trampoline move. And that might send us down. And if that does, then I'm going to start watching this price interacting with the daily 50 because the Moxie indicator is above 0, and that might either give us a bounce off the daily 50 or a trampoline move through it. So this is kind of how you play over the long course of things. All right, so Skyworks, SWKS. Okay, so Skyworks is going to trigger long on the hourly, and it has divergence, right? Daily just completed the trampoline move. Yep, yeah, looking great. Looking great. All right, so let me step down to the 15 because we'll have a little bit more precision that we're looking for in there. All right, so what we're talking about this is on the daily chart, you see how price got overbought? Yeah, there was a big gap between price and the daily 50. So at some point it needed to come back down and touch that. What are we doing right now? We are right into an uptrending daily 50. So we think that most likely price is going to bounce off an uptrending moving average, right? And then also with the Moxie indicator above 0, we're saying, well, momentum is still positive. So yes, all the factors on the daily chart are in line saying that this thing should continue to go up. So now we try and figure out, well, where is that? Because if we just entered right here on that first opportunity of price touching the daily 50, it came right back down, didn't it? So that wasn't the right opportunity. And the reason, or how we knew that, was by looking at the hourly time frame. So remember, if you look at this, see how price went down, see how the Moxie indicator went down? No divergence. See how price went up and Moxie indicator went up? No divergence. Price is following the indicator is following price. It also did that thing where price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0, and that's what we got here. And that's telling us that that was an inverse trampoline situation. And then you can also see here that price got rejected by the underside of the hourly 200. So all of this is kind of talking to us, telling us what we need to know. Then we go wait a little bit longer, and now what do we see? Price came down, retested those lows, so a double bottom right there anyway. And then you can see now we got our positive divergence. Now we're starting to see things that we like. And then you can see here on the 15-minute, all that looking pretty good right there. And then you can see the Moxie indicator got really nice and tight, and then price crossed the 15-minute 50, did a little pullback right there to the 15-minute 50, and then continued to push up. So everything looks pretty good. Now, I don't think right now would be the greatest. I don't think that would be the greatest entry if you're not already in, because if you look closely, you are outside of the third ATR on the hourly, and you're pretty far away from this. So I have a feeling, Imran, that there is probably going to be a pullback someplace. So just give it a little bit of time until that happens. And yes, we could say that perhaps price is leading the indicator because price is over the 50 before the indicator crosses, but generally the setup looks like it's happening, and I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. Okay, in fact, I'm going to write that one down so I keep an eye on it because it looks good. Any pullback would be buyable, and I think generally sideways to up is going to be looking great. All right, so let me take a look, see how everybody's doing out here. All right, so you think the difference between ETC and CGC is that the hourly is going up almost at zero, and the daily and the 15 are both above zero and trending up, so it seems like a likely bet. Yeah, I agree, but we need to be careful and watch as ETC goes. There is some resistance overhead. I think Shake Shack is kind of like that. So Shake Shack was stronger. You can see that the Moxie indicator just took one little dip below there and continued up. But right now it is running into the underside of the daily 200. So I'm just going to watch out for that. Also earnings. I don't like to trade the earnings. So let's watch out for that. Yeah, Imran, so that's exactly right. What you're seeing on Skyworks is fantastic. Just look for any good opportunity to get in as it comes down and wants to bounce off of any of those moving averages and find that support at that moving average. So I think that'll be really good. You're on it. You've found a pretty good one. All right, KMI, let's take a look at that. Yeah, so Eric, basically the same situation as Skyworks. I don't know if you were around when we were talking about that, but notice that just like Skyworks, the daily 50 is an uptrend. So price is likely to bounce off of the daily 50. And then you can see here the Moxie indicator is above zero, which is giving us that confidence, telling us that the overall momentum is still to the upside. So the 50 should be firm, the trend should still be up, any pullbacks should be buyable. So that's the backdrop on that time frame, looking pretty good. Now, earnings, I don't like to trade earnings, so we let that thing go by. Now, Eric, again, I don't know how long you've been watching this, but when price is over the 50 and the Moxie indicator is below zero, that's what I call an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be above the 50 when the indicator is below zero. So that pop after earnings was a false move, and if you had the Moxie indicator, you would have known not to be in that, and it basically just faded and fizzled. Came back down, came back down. Now you're looking for price to interact with the daily 50. It did, it bounced off. Now I zoom into the hourly, and what I'm looking for is basically a test of the 50 and the Moxie indicator above zero. Notice here, price crossed the 50, and also notice here, price over the 50, Moxie indicator still below zero. So no real entry there. Where I would then be willing to take a trade is right in through here as price starts to use the hourly 50 for support and the Moxie indicator is coming up rapidly. It is a little delayed, but kind of knowing the bigger story of this, the bigger situation of price bouncing off the daily 50, as soon as it did this and really started to prove itself, and I'm seeing the indicator just screaming towards zero, up to zero, I'd say, yeah, go for it. Eric, are you already in this or are you looking for an entry with KMI? And then let me just remind anybody who's new out there that over here at simplertrading.com/Moxie is where you can sign up for my mastery program. This is where we do live trading once a month. And then we also send out live actionable push alerts straight to your phone. And that way everyone can follow how I trade. And then over here, we're running a special simplertrading.com/courses. And we've got an hour, 1 day, 14 hours left until this special is over, but pretty good here. You get the class, you get the indicator, you get scanners, you get all this kind of stuff. And we're going to be including 2 new free live trading days in this package. So go ahead and check it out if anybody was asking and wondering about that. All right, so let's see, Eric. Okay, yeah, good. You got it clear. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a pullback at some point because it's it's a little overbought on this particular section. I'm gonna write that one down too. When the market is doing well, it's really hard to actually not want to trade everything. But there are a lot of things that are doing very, very well out there. All right, Zen, let's look at JWN. JWN, let's see what's going on. So short setup? I don't know, man. I wouldn't be looking for a short. So if you have been here for the last couple minutes where I reviewed Skyworks and I reviewed what was it, KMI? Yeah, what this looks like. And now here's actually a really good example, I think, of the power of the Moxie indicator. So it would be interesting so Shen, if you want to come back next week, we do this so on YouTube, we're doing this at 11 o'clock Central Time. Come back next Wednesday, remind me, come tune in, remind me of this one. I'm going to write this one down to see if I'm right. But this is the power of the Moxie indicator that we actually get to see what's happening inside of price and underneath. I know that price, maybe why you're thinking of a short, I know that price is underneath the daily 50, and perhaps, maybe you're looking at the hourly 200 as kind of a downtrend here. But what I'm seeing, and this is close, but this is what I call a trampoline move. When price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above zero, it's kind of like a beach ball. When the indicator is above zero, it's telling it there's a lot of buoyancy, and when price is below the 50, it's like pushing a beach ball underneath water. And what that's telling us is it wants to go back up. Buoyancy is still to the upside. Momentum is still to the upside, and that's what I'm looking at. Plus, I'm starting to see some positive divergence right here, like right there, and you can see right there and right there on the hourly chart. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing this thing actually start to turn back up to the upside. So let's keep an eye on this. I'd be very cautious about shorting this. I think that it actually wants to start looking to the upside. So I'm going to make a note about that one so I can look at that later and follow it. Because I always like to make sure, that I follow up on my guidance, so to speak. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. All right, Naples, let's look XOM, and then I got to get going. XOM. Thanks again for everybody tuning in. Really always appreciate you guys commenting, giving me something to kind of talk about. Otherwise, I'm just kind of talking out into the ether, and it's much more pertinent if there are people out there chatting along with me. All right, so you're looking at crude has bottomed. Yeah, I would say short term. The reason, and maybe you're picking up on this too, but I like to use these ATRs. So one, we got past earnings. That's good. That's done out of the way. But this thing is horrendously oversold. Do you see how far below the daily third ATR this thing is? They don't stay out that long for too long. And now what we're starting to see is, a lot of volume has come down here. So probably a lot of, buying volume because other people are starting to see the same situations like, oh, it's just too oversold. Let's start doing something. And then here's that double bottom situation. Price found a low, popped, couldn't get past the hourly 50, so came back down, did a double bottom, and now you see the positive divergence, and now you see that price looks like it's actually trying to get past the hourly 50. So yeah, I would say that I think there's probably a short-term move up on this. Just be careful because it's still not done. You see how on the hourly chart price had to go down, up, down, and then to go up, that W pattern? Well, you might get the same thing on the daily. You might get the down and then the up and then the down and then the up. So what you're trying to catch right now, Naples, is as price crosses the hourly 50, you're probably going to try and catch this move to say that move. So just don't be surprised that when that move finishes, that it might fizzle a little bit before it starts its next move. So there are multiple moves that can happen within a setup, and you're seeing one setup. And typically, when I look at this, there's going to be one move, and then it'll fade a little bit, and then there's going to be another move. So keep an eye on that, and that way you won't be too surprised if anything happens. And yeah, I like what's happening here too on the 15-minute. You can see that 15-minute is also trying to get past the 15-minute 200, and the Moxie indicator is looking pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, okay. mostly what I'm talking about of why I'm saying that I'd be concerned about that second move is that you see this distance between the 8 and 21 on the daily chart. A lot of times when you have that big of a distance, price just can't, keep going to the moon. It's not going to start its next swing trade on that. What you're going to see oftentimes is price will come up and hit something around the daily 21. Something around, it's a blurry line, but somewhere around that. So that's why I'm saying your first move is probably going to be somewhere to the daily 21. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it can move enough to hit the hourly 200. So it's probably just going to go up here somewhere and then roll over again. So I think, yeah, what you're saying, price retest of the hourly 50, I think yes, I think that would be your second entry. So your first entry is probably here as price gets across the hourly 50. Your second entry would be as price comes down to test the hourly 50. So yeah, look for that. And Imran, yeah, gold, GC, I don't see anything there. So I'm not going to be, I don't see anything. Nothing much I can talk about. And Ethan, some of my best trades, I'm looking at PLCE. So this is what I'll leave you guys off with. I'll leave you off with a couple trades that I'm looking for that I think are probably reasonable to go in right now. PLCE looks really good. And in fact, a couple that you guys gave me today, I like KMI. That one's already starting to move. And Skyworks, both of those look pretty good. I would just say any pullback is buyable. I would prefer to buy on just a little bit of a pullback or sideways movement to catch up with those moving averages. Both of those look really good. And let's see what else was. Let's see. EGHT. Has that one still? Yeah, EGHT is still reasonable. So I would look into EGHT. Generally, I'm looking at this thing following the hourly 50. Now, maybe it's going to take a dip, don't know, but I like it. Just make sure you set your stop probably below the 200, but I like EGHT. I'd love to see this thing just bounce right off the hourly 50. All right, guys. Sorry for the rest of you that's kind of tuned in. This is my time. We've spent 25 minutes with you. We're going to be back again next week. We're doing this every Wednesday. And remember, we're running some specials here. So come check it out, simplertrading.com/courses. If you like what you've seen here, come say hi. Let me know how I can help you out. We've got some 2 free live trading days coming up if you buy the course. And if you want to come follow the trades that I exactly put out, simplertrading.com/Moxie. So thanks again, everybody. And I'm going to be signing out for now. Talk to you next week.